I know I can't just walk in and say, you have to trust me, please. I'm good at my job.
In talent acquisition, trust isn't given, it's earned. But how do you build that trust and become more than just another recruiter? Brooke Wheeler is a talent acquisition leader with over 25 years of experience. Known for transforming recruitment strategies and building high-performing teams, she joined me to share insights on elevating your TA career and making a lasting impact through internal branding.
If hiring managers don't understand what you're about and what your heart is in it for, why would they trust you with their jobs?
What's one mistake that you see TA professionals make when they're trying to build their brand internally?
We're the face of the company. Our job is to sell the company. If you start feeling like you're not aligning with your company's values, you're in the wrong job.
What advice would you give to TA professionals who want to be seen as more than just recruiters, but as like strategic business partners?
Come to the table with solutions. And that sounds, again, very simple. But if you are just waiting on, other people to tell you the answers, you're never going to make it very far.
But what if your leader feels threatened by your efforts to build your internal brand?
You certainly need to respect your leader and in some way, but
why do you work in talent acquisition? Like, why do you do what you do?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Probably like everyone, I fell into talent acquisition just straight out of college. But what I love is being able to talk to so many people and learn so many different stories. Unfortunately, I've been unemployed this year, and that's what I miss the most. And that's what I find myself gravitating toward. It's just being able to hear people's stories and learn why they love the work that they do. Maybe it's just like the natural voyeur in all of us. We really like to learn, what other people do and how they thrive in their jobs.
Yeah, I find that now that I'm not working in corporate and that I'm not actively recruiting, it's really one of the things that I miss. It's like hearing people's stories day in,
Right.
day out, 6, 7, 8 people you talk to in one day, all different. That is so amazing. I think when people hear the word personal branding, they think external, they think LinkedIn, they think any social media. But today we're going to talk
Mhm.
about the other side of personal branding, which is internally. So what does building your brand internally entail? How do you go about doing that?
Right. So many different ways, but the number one thing that we as recruiters, as talent acquisition specialists need to be are trusted advisors. And if people don't know you, if hiring managers don't understand what you're about and what your heart is in it for, why would they trust you with their jobs? And that's really what we're after, is becoming that trusted advisor. And, throughout my career, I think that I've done that well in the sense of gaining their trust, but also doing what I say I'm going to do and caring about their business. And we as TA and in recruiting, we're stewards of the brand of the company. And it's our job, to be that face for the company. And so part of that is just, like I said, doing what you say you're going to do, being curious, wanting to ask questions. Tell me about your business. What's even the product that's on the other end? And I think that's where you start building your brand and being that steward to the company.
I agree. And I think I know a lot of people, me included, have had periods in their life when they felt, in their professional life, when they felt undervalued or overlooked. Have you had any times, can you share any personal stories where you felt undervalued or overlooked within your organization and how you went about overcoming that?
Yeah. And I'm sure I could tell plenty from the beginning of my career, but most recently I joined a company that unfortunately they had laid off their entire HR department, their entire recruiting department. And so I came in with a new HR department, and, the leaders it was kind of a Wild West. The leaders were giving all of their jobs out to agencies. And so when we walked in the door, most everyone was very grateful. They were like, oh my gosh, please, like, what can I give you? But there was the CTO who had kind of he maybe created the Wild West show. He brought in a lot of his own agencies that he had worked with before. And, I kind of had one other thing, I guess, not going for me, I am an everything but IT recruiter. And so he was like, who are you? You don't know my business. And I didn't. But, so that was kind of I really had to dig in to say, okay, I know I can't just walk in and say, you have to trust me, please. I'm good at my job. So I really had to start a process where I gained his trust. And the very first thing that I did was, I didn't do it to be sneaky, but I went to his direct reports and I started building their trust, because they're the ones like in the trenches, in the weeds, that need these hires. So I started, everything that I do, a biweekly meeting with them. In fact, we probably did it at least every week, if not every 3 or 4 days at first, biweekly meeting with them to learn exactly what I said about, how you build your brand. Tell me about what you do. Tell me about the people that you need, so that they knew that I was caring about their group and their department. I learned about their culture. Like, what does it take to be in your department, and who are the people that work well and thrive here? So it really is just about, baby steps to gain that trust, and just be very direct. Like, I don't know exactly what's happening or what you need, but I really want to learn, and I really want to know more about your business. And so slowly but surely over time, he saw that I'm here for you. I want to do a good job for you. And, once he saw a couple of wins, he was able he really was our greatest advocate.
That's an amazing story. And I think every recruiter listening can think back to a time where someone was like, because there's always someone internally who's like, no, not you, for whatever reason. They're anti
Right.
recruiter or for whatever reason. So that's a great story. At the end of the day, what we want to do is build trust and become
Mhm.
partners. And
Right.
the only way of doing that is really like you did, like I call it infiltrate, talk to people.
Right, right. Well, and as I don't know about you, as a human, me, I'm not great at tooting my own horn, and so my work stands for itself. But sometimes you have to learn how, and that's part of building your brand. And maybe you have a boss or someone who's really good at tooting your horn for you. I've always had those people who are, my greatest advocates, and I think you have to find those folks within your organization that can help and say, kind of prop you up when you're not able to do it yourself.
Exactly. So, what's one thing that you wish someone had told you about building your career and your brand earlier in your journey?
Yeah. I think that we all think that we have to know everything to be the expert, and you don't. So I really wish someone had said, just trust your gut, because when we walk into a room with hiring managers, with candidates, we are the expert. We could know 5% more than them, but we typically know more. And I think it's just to trust yourself and trust your gut, that you are the subject matter expert, that you have value, you have something to add. There were so many times when, imposter syndrome, with that dirty word we all hate, it's going to jump in, and it's going to, or jump out rather. And it's just how to flick it away and say, like, I can help here.
Yeah, and that's something that many guests on this podcast and I have spoken about many times throughout the episodes. It's like, yes, you might not be a technical person because you might not know half of how to do half of the jobs that you're recruiting for, but you're the expert at hiring.
Hmm.
That's your thing. You have to
Right.
stand in that power.
100%.
So, how do you approach internal branding like on a daily basis? What does that look like?
Right. It just, I've been very fortunate where I have some corporations who have an incredible career development path. And, there were so many times early in my career when, like we said, I didn't trust myself. It didn't feel like I was the leader. But no matter what role you're in, where you sit in the organization, you have the ability to lead. And if you don't feel confident in your leadership, find some classes. And I know LinkedIn Learning has some, and I was able to take, clear communication, or some, conflict is always, difficult for me. So really how to lean into conflict in a healthy way. And, I was very fortunate to have those classes available to me, but there's so many different opportunities. But just the every day, just a little pebble in your bucket to keep building your voice in a way.
Looking back, because I know that you've managed many TA teams, you are a TA leader. What's one mistake that you see TA professionals make when they're trying to build their brand internally?
I hope I don't offend anyone with this, but we NTA, we're the face of the company. We are the first line. We are sometimes the first conversation someone has with the organization, and our job is to sell the company. And if you start feeling like you're not aligning with your company's values, you're in the wrong job. That's and I've seen so many recruiters who maybe on the back end and maybe not out loud to a candidate, but there's just a lot of negativity, like, and not saying you have to always love everything your company does, but you kind of have to drink the Kool-Aid in a bit of a way. And you really do need to always have positivity and, speak highly of your company and not, be the person who is talking behind people's backs or saying, oh, this guy, blah, blah, blah. We have to be that positive face to the company. And I think I hope I've done a great job of doing that with my organizations. That's probably sometimes maybe on internal branding, I speak more about my company than I do about myself. And that's, maybe a mistake that I've made. And so it's certainly something to always remember. I know you spoke with Anna Morgan about your external brand, and you never want to forget that either. You also want, when you're on LinkedIn, find your own voice and find what makes you the most valuable person outside of just your company.
Yeah, and it's true what you said. I mean, and I've said this on other episodes. I don't remember with who it was, but there's always some BS at the company, right?
Right, of
There's
course.
no company's perfect, but at the end of the day, you work there because the good outweighs the BS, hopefully, right?
Right.
Yes, you're not painting a rosy picture for candidates and everything, because sometimes people, the first time they ever hear about the company is from you. Like you said, yes, you're the face of the company. But if you just say the truth and
Mhm,
approach things, but
mhm.
you have to be in that positive mindset about your company, because the BS, yes, explain it to people. I'm never an advocate for hiding it,
Correct,
but
yes.
there's positive things about the BS, right? There's positive
Right,
ways
right.
to
Mhm.
explain it to people. But I know for me, the second I'm not aligned with the company, or like the BS starts outweighing the good, I know it's time to leave. And
Right,
those few weeks or months, and now unfortunately years, of someone's in this situation that it can take you to find another place, you really have to work on your mindset and not presenting your company in a bad light, because that kills your brand internally. Because the hiring manager or someone else will know from something a candidate says that you are not being the best representation of the company, and that starts killing your brand internally and killing the trust that they have with you.
right. And again, yeah, it all goes back to trust.
Yeah. So, talking about trust, how do you build that trust and rapport with internal stakeholders, especially those that don't have a deep understanding of TA, but we know everyone thinks they know how to hire, right?
Right, right. Why do I need you? It, it's, it, I think a lot of it is curiosity. And that's again why we're so good at our jobs and why we're great interviewers, because we're curious about people's lives. And I think we just extend that same quality to our hiring managers. Tell me about your business. Can I come to your lunch and learns? Can I attend your sales meetings? Make sure that you have constant communication with them, what's happening, especially when are doing that intake call. Really get curious on their business and then be honest. I have, sat in an intake meeting. I'm like, I have never recruited for this in my life. but I'm going to figure it out and you're going to help me, and show up at their team meetings with a couple of profiles and show the entire team, like, this is what I think. How does this align with what you're looking for, and get their feedback? And it's just a matter of making sure they know you're there for them. Quick story. I had a hiring manager that it was a large, maybe 200 customer service organization. And I was moved on to be the recruiter for them. And I noticed a lot of, not maybe pushback, defensiveness, just non-responsiveness from the hiring manager. And I could have said, well, she must not need me, but I decided to just ask a very direct question. I don't feel like I'm getting a lot from you. Is there something I can do better that would make you, want to work with me? And she said, I've had 3 recruiters before you, and they all, you know, didn't send good candidates. They barely called me. They asked to be moved off of this department. And her being vulnerable to me allowed me to then say, okay, well, these are the steps that I think we should take. I'm not offering perfection, but I'm offering you my service, and let's make a plan that works for you. And, we put some things in place with communication, with meetings, with, me interviewing her best talent so that I could learn, the profile. And, we were able to really kind of turn around that department because we got better hires, better tenure, better, quality, not quality of candidate, but, gosh, what am I trying to say here? Happiness in their job. I'm not sure. I'm like, where's my thesaurus when I need it?
Yeah, no. That's such a powerful illustration of really what it means to be a partner and to build trust. Because behind everything, like, yeah, we can talk about hiring managers and how they think they know everything, and they can talk about how they hate us and how we're not needed. But when you, like, behind a hiring manager is a human. Behind a recruiter is a human. And historically, it doesn't matter what you're doing. How do humans connect? And
Right.
it's through talking.
Novel concept sometimes, right?
I know. There's a saying in
Mhm.
Spanish. So I'm from Panama. Spanish is my first language. And there's a saying in Panama that it's like people understand each other when they talk. And it just means like when things are out of whack, when everyone's mad, everything, like the simplest way to get a relationship back on track is to do what you did. Just reach out to the person, ask the question that you're wanting to
Mhm.
know. Don't make up stories in your head, just
Right.
talk. That could solve so many
That it
problems.
100%. I love that. I love that.
So, what advice would you give to TA professionals who want to be seen as more than just recruiters, but as like strategic business partners?
It's come to the table with solutions. And that sounds, again, very simple. But if you are just waiting on, other people to tell you the answers, you're never going to make it very far. Truly come with ideas on what are some different ways to recruit, because we kind of all get into our bad habits of just, oh, let me go to LinkedIn, or let me do this. But not that everyone has to be a super sourcer, but what are some organizations that you're a part of that we should call? Are there any, simple newsletters that you get? And that's probably not even accurate anymore, but people that you follow online. But, I think that it's just a matter of showing up every day, ready to help, ready to serve, and, be that matchmaker that you are.
I love that advice. As a TA leader, how do you empower your team to build internal relationships?
I just like to get out of the way, in the sense of, I will always be my team's greatest advocate. I will introduce you. I will make sure who you need to work with. I will set expectations with. I expect, the communication to be proactive and not reactive. I expect that you have meetings with all of your hiring managers. Simple, do an intake, but I want to make sure that you build a relationship and that it's not through me. I've had, gosh, unfortunately, a couple of leaders of my bosses who I would get in trouble if I reached out to the CEO without them, on the email or in the meeting. And that doesn't empower me to do my job. So I hope that I've learned from some of my great leaders who look at me and say, you're the expert. You're the one who knows what's happening on the ground. So you're the one that should be in charge of having these communications. And then as a leader, of course, always being available to help with any issues that come up or if there's any kind of miscommunication. But I'm always the one that's going to say, well, so and so is the expert. Let's call them in on this conversation, because that's how people learn and how they can become the next us in the leadership, is if we're letting them do their jobs.
So I was looking through your LinkedIn profile as I prepared for this, and I saw some of the amazing recommendations that you have on
Uh,
LinkedIn. And now I know why. Just getting out of the way in everything that you've said, and like being that champion for the people, like speaking the name of your teams in rooms that they're not in and bringing them into it, and like letting them know it's okay to speak to someone higher up than me or to my boss. That one shows confidence in who you are and like in your professional abilities, but also it's a sign of a great leader. So I can see
Thank you.
why you have such
Thank you.
great recommendations.
And I've had good mentors in that as well. So I'm always glad to be on this side and being able to copy and mimic that.
And now you've brought up a good point of something that I just thought about. For someone who's working with a leader who isn't that open to them talking to others, especially higher up, but the person wants to build their internal brand, I could see where a boss could see that as like competition.
Intimidating.
Yeah. Would you
Yes.
have some advice for someone who finds themselves in that situation?
Yeah. Um, the advice that I wish I'd given myself at this time in my career, maybe, is what we're looking for there. And, you certainly need to respect your leader and in some way. But I think, having advocates of their peers, I found was very important, so that they could bring me into certain conversations if it was something that I needed to be a part of, and maybe my leader wasn't bringing me into that conversation. So I went to a mentor that I had in the company. She was a senior director in the product division, and she said, sometimes you just have to manage up. You can't undo or change your boss. You can't make them a different person, but you can just learn what they're looking for. So I knew any meeting I would show up with exactly what I knew she was looking for before she asked me. And if there were situations when, she didn't, necessarily want me to go talk to someone, of course I would always learn to you have to copy them, but just be confident in yourself. And so there's certainly lessons to be learned from that. And it is, find mentors in the organization, find your ambassadors, and find that like hype squad that if you are like feeling down about the way you've been treated, just find some people that can say that's them and it's not you, and keep learning and growing from that. And it makes us all realize the kind of leader we want to be when we see that in other people.
And that's the beauty of working in TA, I think, because we get to work naturally, it's part of our job with so many people outside of our immediate boss and team.
Mhm.
We can get those advocates and those people speaking your name and telling you like, look, it's you. It's not you, it's them. And like they don't only tell you that, but they say that to other people. And I think that's an advantage that we have that people in other roles don't have. Your job involves exposure to other people.
Right.
So you can build your brand sneakily, I guess, that way.
Right, right. And it's all about making sure that you have people that were right beside you, always cheering for you. And we do the same to
Perfect.
everyone else. That's our job too.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It definitely is, because I know I've been in situations where someone's boss is like, oh, so and so this. I'm like, really? I've had an amazing experience with them. They're one of my favorite hiring managers because of this, this, and this. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
helps see people in a different light.
Right.
So, and I think it's just something that naturally recruiters do. We're always trying to share the best about someone else, right? Because that's what we do with our candidates. So I know I'm like territorial if someone talks bad about one of my hiring managers that I like. I'll be
Right.
like, no way.
Mhm. Well, and I'm obsessed with like assessments and behavioral assessments. So anything that I take, it usually comes out with you are an encourager, you're the cheerleader, like, and so that's just kind of a part of my nature too. And I know it's about you as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I took Clifton Strengths. I'm forgetting it right now, but I've taken it a few times because I'm like, I want to get something different. I don't know why. I always get like relationship or relational as the first one.
Don't try for anything else. That's you.
So, as we wrap up, what are you up to these days? Like, how can listeners connect with you?
Yeah, I would love that. I have a couple of things going on right now. I am on the job market, so I'm looking for leadership roles within the talent acquisition. But in lieu of that, I decided I'd just hang up a shingle, and I have created my own business called Restoration Talent Solutions. It's a fractional recruiting company, and I think in my last role at Merchant E was one of my favorite jobs because I was able to really create processes out of nothing. And I love doing that. I really want to be able to add value to companies who need recruiters when they've never had recruiters. And what does talent acquisition even mean? So follow me on LinkedIn, Brooke Wheeler, Restoration Talent Solutions for Fractional TA. And if anyone just wants to talk and if you want to walk through this, I am always available and happy to discuss more.
And I know you totally mean that because Brooke is such an approachable person. So, really, I'm going to put the links in the show notes if you want to talk to Brooke, if you want to hire Brooke, if you want any ask questions, if you have any questions about this episode, please reach out. I know she'll talk to you.
Yeah. Thank you so
Amazing.
much.
Of course. Thank you for being on the show today.
My pleasure.
Thanks to Brooke for being on the show. To learn more about branding yourself as a recruiter, check out episode 12, where I spoke to Anna Morgan about the power of a recruiter's personal brand and how to brand yourself outside of your company. Make sure to grab a notebook. Now, as the TA job market starts to pick up, we're all looking to get back in the game stronger than ever. Over the next few weeks, I'll be sharing episodes packed with strategies to help you reinvent your approach to talent acquisition. Don't miss out. Subscribe to Throw Out the Playbook wherever you get your podcasts. And if today's conversation inspired you, please leave a 5-star review. Your reviews help other TA folks find us. Thanks for listening, and I'll chat with you next week.